Hey, welcome to the first episode of Elephants Don't Knit. Uh, our first guest will be George Crone. He is a coach with the Window baseball team, and I'll let him add anything else that he would like to add to that.
No, that pretty much covers it. I do have a day job. I work in a residential facility with juveniles, but yeah, just coaching baseball.
Okay. Like, well, for people in our area, they know, but like three state titles in 4 years, correct?
Yeah, yeah. 4 consecutive trips to the state final four.
So I guess my first question would be, so I told you we'd talk a little bit about the mental side, I guess. Like with that, what like how do you guys get your kids prepared for those things? Like, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, it's a number of things throughout the season. We generally have a pretty tough preseason with a lot of things that are mentally challenging as well as physically challenging. If you push through kind of the mental blockade of man, this sucks, and you get to a place of you know um, this is what needs to be done. So we push the kids initially. We always use um, the kind of thinking of you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. So as much as we can push them in practice, in games, everything just kind of slows down then. Um, if we make practice as intense as we can, then on game day, it's just everything's slower. Um, the other thing we do some meditation, stuff like that, just kind of trying to get the kids present in the moment. We try to do like mental visualization or imagery, just kind of walk them through. Um, Maybe if we have the scouting report, we know what kid we're going to face. Maybe kind of talk through um, his mechanics or even just going through. We're playing at this field. Give them some pictures of the field, any video of the kid that we're going to face, stuff like that. I mean, I think it all kind of comes around. Skip Bertman always said, the famous LSU baseball coach, he always said, everything happens twice, kind of once in your mind and once in reality. So the more you can visualize things happening, the more they're bound to happen. Your brain is already taking you through a mental rep of that. Hitting in Canal Park, if you visualize it, um, you can picture yourself doing it. You've already had the mental reps when you're there. You're just there trying to do a job.
Okay, so like I know you talked about like how much of a performance do you think is like mental versus physical, or is it like basically 50-50 and you got to approach them both?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think obviously in baseball you have to have some fundamentals, um, some things like that. But I would say if you're fundamentally sound on defense and you're not mentally prepared to field a ground ball and throw somebody out or make a play, um, you're if you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I hope they don't hit me the ball. I hope they don't hit me the ball this pitch, and you're not locked in pitch to pitch on getting the ball, doing what you need to do. So I would say baseball has a lot of mental components to it. You get 4 at bats in 2.5 hours, 3 hours, um, and then you're on the field. You might play the whole game in left field and not get a ball hit to you, and then the game's on the line and the ball's hit to you. So um, just being focused pitch to pitch, I think, is is huge. Um, the mental side of that is huge, um, and then physically, I mean, every high school kid that's on the ball field should be physically able to make the play. But if they're not focused, if they don't know where they're supposed to throw the ball, so I would say it's if I had to put a percentage on it, um, I would say it's north of 75% mental.
Like, I would probably agree with you, but so like, what's one mental skill do you think you wish like athletes would develop at an earlier age?
Hmm. I would say at an earlier age, it would be beneficial to understand the things you can control versus the things you can't control. Um, I think if kids knew things they can control at an earlier age, it wouldn't be as hard to explain that to them. If they kind of grasp, like, you know, I'm in control of my body, my actions, how I react to situations. I control my response. I don't control the event. I don't control the umpire's call. I don't control what Timmy's dad thinks in the stands. Um, I don't control my coaches. I just control myself and what I can control. And then, what one thing we got into this year is ultimately you don't control the outcome and you very seldom control your performance, especially a game like baseball that's just heartbreaking. You throw a perfect pitch and the kid hits a flare over the first baseman's head for a hit. You did your job. You executed what you were trying to do. The same thing on offense. You hit a ball really hard, and it's right at the third baseman's chest, and you controlled what you could control. You did everything right. You just were unlucky in that. But how you respond to that, if you take that out on defense and you're still dwelling on the fact that you barreled a ball and it was right at the third baseman, then maybe you're not locked in on that next pitch defensively, and then things start to slip from there.
I agree. Like I think a lot of kids don't understand. Like they might go 1 for 3. They go 1 for 3, and that one hit got 2 RBIs, but they're so worried about the other two at bats where they probably hit the ball well. The defense probably made a play, but they dwell on those. And at the end of the day, batting 300 is actually pretty good in baseball.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I always tell the kids, for every barrel ball that you hit right at them, you probably had at least two base hits this year that you failed to do your job and you got on base because you hit a flare, you hit a little bloop over the infield into the outfield, and you might got a beat on that pitch, but you still bumped your batting average. So the game kind of gives and takes a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, so I help coach JV at Triway for those you don't know. And this year we had a kid. I mean, he smokes one in the center, and the kid makes a great play. The next time he popped it about just behind the pitcher's mound, and no one catches it, and it's technically a double because it bounced, and no one made a play on it. So, like, yeah, there's things like usually they even themselves out.
Yeah, yeah.
But all right, so I guess we'll go. I'll kind of focus on you, and I'll talk about my like. What's one thing like when you used to play that you used to do to get yourself like mentally prepared, or like just get your head in the right space?
Um, I would say for me, I didn't really necessarily think about it this way, but I knew that I didn't define it as this, but I knew that there were certain things I wanted to do before the game. You know, I played third and pitched, and when I was pitching, there was definitely some things I wanted to make sure I did. Throw some off speed in warm ups and just stuff like that. Um, One thing for me, I never wanted to eat anytime close to the game. I wanted to wait. I always felt like I played better with an empty stomach personally. I guess there is some science behind that you don't play as some people might not play as well with a full stomach. I remember in high school, some of my teammates would eat foot long subs from Subway before the game, and I just never could bring myself to do stuff like that. But that would be one thing is I didn't necessarily define it as a pregame routine or anything like that, but I just you know and then I didn't really have a strong mindset. No one really ever told me anything. Um, I wish I had people telling me some of the stuff that we tell the kids now because like I always thought if you had butterflies before a game that meant you weren't prepared. So I always felt unprepared before games. In reality, I mean that's all just your body making the event important, and it really doesn't have anything to do with your preparedness. So I wish I had some more advice like that, but yeah, for the most part, I would just try to focus on what I needed to do in any given situation.
So like my thing I used to always do, and I couldn't explain to you why, but before any sporting event, I always eat two Tic Tacs.
Hmm.
It just helped me calm and get focused.
Yeah.
Because like that's what we and like the funny part is like now being a coach and I see these kids and I'm like, here, I always have them in my backpack. I'm like, here, have two Tic Tacs, and they're always like, some of them look at me weird, some of them just like, okay, whatever. Uh, just I was trying to think of other questions, but like, what advice would you give to a young athlete about managing pressure? When I say young, I mean you can say like a JV kid, like or like a U14. So I think the younger ages, I don't know that it truly, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the the one thing that I told the varsity team that I feel like is good advice for any age group is, you know, we kind of live in this worrisome society, kind of just like filling ourselves with fear. Um, the way that the OHSA playoffs are set up, if you win a round, you have like a week off before you play another tournament game. And so we had some downtime between regionals and the state semifinal. And I told him on I think Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, and I said, look, no one knows what's going to happen, and like we don't know. No one has a crystal ball. No one can tell you what's going to happen in the game Friday. But if you fill the next 48 hours with all the doubts and fears that your brain's telling you, you're going to play fearful on Friday. If you fill your mind with all the things that can happen positively, all the hits you're going to have, all the plays you're going to make, um, all the pitches you're going to throw, then then you'll have true confidence going into the game as opposed to, man, what if they throw really hard, or what if the umpire rings me up on a pitch outside, or what if um, I make an error, and you play this what if game and you fill your mind with fear and doubt, and at the end of the day, all it did was you controlled those thoughts and you just let them. You filled all that space, all that empty space, all that unknown with fear instead of with positivity and things that could happen for you too.
Right. Yeah. So uh, like when you have a kid who's having a rough, maybe they had a rough day. They usually have to go to school for all day. Sometimes kids just have bad days. Like, how do you get those kids to say, "Hey, that's behind you. Get ready. Got to focus on this game." Or do you just always are they coming ready, locked in because they want to perform?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of a few things. I mean, I think that if they're distracted, I think you can kind of maybe they need to process that. Talk to them a little bit, maybe figure out what's going on. But that's where to me the meditation is huge because it's all about focusing on breathing in and breathing out and focusing on controlling yourself. And you might have had a crap day, but you can't control what took place 4 hours ago, what took place 2 hours ago. That's all behind you. Be where your feet are, be present, be in the moment. Um, I mean, I think it works out some. I mean, I think sometimes you're going to have kids, especially at the high school level, that their girlfriend broke up with them, or there's a big test tomorrow and it seems like the end of the world, and I think sometimes people play into that, adults in their lives and stuff, and it's like, at the end of the day, crap happens. I think the biggest part of our mental game is we tell the kids up front, you don't have to do the stuff that we're teaching, but I'll tell you right now, the stress in your life of high school is pales in comparison to any adult stress you're going to have. And if you can't control your stress as a 15-year-old with barely any issues, you're going to really struggle when you're, 25 and you have no money in your pocket, no money in your bank account, your car breaks down, and you got to get to work. Real life. I mean, it's similar to the game of baseball. It takes more than it gives you. Um, so if you can't handle your emotions, and part of that's just us showing that. If I'm on an emotional roller coaster as a coach, I can't also preach that the players need to be locked in. If I'm telling them, hey, don't react to the umpire, and then I'm throwing up my hands and yelling and screaming and all those things, I can't tell them, hey, in the big moment you need to be poised if I'm not poised. And everyone has their moments. I mean, I have my moments. I mean, you've
Yeah.
seen JV umpiring, so I mean,
Hmm.
everyone has their moments. Um, but it's more not letting that moment turn into a bad 2 hours, turn into a bad day.
I agree. Like I would say most teams take the personality of their head coach for the most part. Like there's always exceptions to the rule. And like if you see a coach that, maybe the call doesn't go your way and you question it a little bit and move on, the kids are like, oh, okay, like it's fine. Like, well, we'll just get it back.
Yeah,
And well, like I also coach soccer. You used to coach soccer. Like
yeah,
90% of the calls are 50-50, and sometimes they go your way and the next time they won't, and then the next time they will. And
yeah,
you just kind of live with that and move on with your day.
yeah, yeah. We had a play in the state championship. I don't know. Were you at the state championship when we played Graham?
No. I
Oh,
watched it online.
okay. Okay. Well, there was a play at first base, and even right now, I don't understand how the kid is called safe. Um, because our first baseman had the ball, was in the base path, and the kid avoided the tag and slid into first, and they called him safe. And and I don't even know if he avoided the tag, but he was either tagged out or he was out of the baseline. I don't see how there's another outcome to that play, but he was called safe. And the umpires got together and they called him safe. And stuff like that and games like that. I mean, if Doc went out, talked to him, got them to at least come together on it, and then when they made their final, their second call, you just got to let it go. You did what you could. You tried to get them to meet, and I think that especially in those big games and those big moments, I think some coaching staffs let that moment carry over, and maybe they even complain about it to their team or whatever the case may be. But I mean, we truly just tried to say it's a second, third inning, whatever it was, let it go. It ended up not. They ended up not mounting a rally or anything, but we just had to get a fourth out that inning. Um, and it is what it is. But I do think that even like we saw in the College World Series, I don't know if you saw the controversy there, but it's like you know, yeah, that coach probably wasn't wrong. Um, he probably didn't deserve to be tossed, but at the same time, once he was tossed, then the assistant coach gets tossed, and there was just a bunch of men not controlling their emotions, not controlling um, you know what they were. And I don't know if it had any effect on the outcome of the game, but I would imagine any team that loses two coaches in the bottom of the first inning, it affects at least some of the decision making down the line. So
Yeah, I agree.
stuff like that, you just as much as it sucks, as much as you wish the umpire didn't have a bad day, sometimes it happens. And if you don't move on, then it might end your season.
Yeah. So, uh, like, is there any like certain like podcasts or like shows you listen to like that you get some of your stuff from? Like, there's go like one that you like go to, and I guess
Yeah,
that
I mean
guy or some.
anything that Jeremy Sheenger, he's the head baseball coach at Georgia Gwinnett College NAIA school. I think he won a national championship in either 2021 or 2022. Um, anything he puts out, he's probably got 100 and some episodes. They're all old. He doesn't currently put out anything, um, but he puts out some good stuff. I'll listen to the ABCA, American Baseball Coaches Association podcast that they do. The guy that runs it coached in college for a number of years, and he pretty much interviews anybody in the game of baseball. Sometimes have good things. Sometimes they say things and I'm like, man, how did this guy get on the podcast? But for the most part, they have good information, um, stuff like that. Anything on I follow like Alan Jaeger. He's the founder of like J bands, which like everyone uses now. But he has a lot of stuff on meditation and breathing, and he publishes like meditation scripts. A lot of the times when I go through meditation with the team, if I'm leading it, I'll kind of follow his general script. I mean, it's nothing earth shattering. It's just kind of a general script of meditation.
All right. Uh, that's really all I have, unless you want to add anything else.
No, I don't have much else. We are a little plug for Wayndale baseball. We are celebrating 70 years next spring, so we're hoping to get the alumni together sometime in the fall or early spring and do do a little something celebration for that. Um, and yeah, I mean, if I guess anyone that hears this has any, we're not as blessed financially, I guess, as some other school districts in our area, but we are trying to upgrade our facilities. So if there's anybody out there that has money that they buried 20 years ago that they want to get out and give to Wayndale baseball, we'll take it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, I was gonna. So I was gonna ask you three questions like that have nothing to do with really anything. That's
Okay.
all right. So, like, what's the last book you read or listened to?
The last book I listened to was Atomic Habits by Ryan Holiday. I believe he was actually a pitcher in Division Three, and I think at Denison, maybe Denison pitcher, maybe Otterbein or something. Uh, but it's a book about developing habits and kind of habit stacking and stuff like that. It was pretty good.
Are you into like board games or card games?
Not really. The kids at work uh, play a game called Spades. It's uh, it's similar to euchre. If you're familiar with euchre, you can play spades. But beyond that, no, I pretty much that's about it. I play with them every once in a while. My um, wife and kids will play a board game, but those are usually pretty general board games like Sorry or Trouble or stuff like that. But
This can get intense.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm not a huge board game person, but I'll play occasionally.
All right, and then uh, yes, I was gonna say living or dead. Like, who's somebody that you would like absolutely love to meet that you've never met, like to have a sit
Hmm.
down and talk to or with?
That's living.
Sure.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think it'd be cool from a sports perspective to sit down with like Terry Francona and have a cup of coffee and talk. Um, but obviously, like anybody, like former presidents or world leaders or people that really had to handle stress on like a large magnitude would be kind of cool to sit down with too. But yeah, I'd say probably like Terry Francona or someone like that that's just been in the game forever. Um, that'd be pretty cool to meet them and pick their brain on a couple things.
That's fair. I bet it'd be interesting.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. I'm sure he. I did meet a couple years ago. Well, whenever they opened the Dick's Sporting Goods in Worcester, I met Mike Hargrove came down and was doing autograph signing, and apparently was not extremely like a hot get for them because I went in there in the middle of when he was supposed to be signing autographs and he was in the sports the one section completely alone, just standing at a table. So I went up and I talked to him for like 15 or 20 minutes, which was cool because he was obviously a manager back when I was growing up, and so I saw him on TV in a lot of big games for Cleveland, and so that was a cool experience. But I'm sure Francona would be even more interesting and more colorful.
Yeah. We met Milton Bradley one time at the Lodi Outlet Mall.
Milton Bradley. That's like a
Yeah,
man.
that's
Me and
that's
the
that's going in the Wayback Machine. Well,
yeah.
for younger kids, it's the
Well,
Wayback Machine. For us, that he was in when we were younger, that was the guy. And
yeah, yeah. Well, and I have a lot of well, I have a lot of stuff going on personally, but I was picking up night shifts the week of state, and so I actually worked the night shift going into the state championship game. So I was kind of tired, but the rubber duck staff that were there by our dugout in pregame, I guess I don't know what other assistant coaches are doing during pregame of the state championship, but me and these guys were having this debate of who you'd put in the Hall of Fame of like the Hall of Average or like the Hall of Pretty Good, and they were throwing out some names that I hadn't heard since the early 2000s and stuff. But yeah, that was a fascinating conversation. Some of the names they were bringing up.
we're talking like baseball.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
was it
Like
like
the name I
Indians?
threw out there
Like
was like Edwin Encarnacion. Well, no, the one guy that was there was a Yankees fan, so he was naming
okay,
more Yankees players. But me and the other guy, we were pretty much on the same page. But I said like Edwin Encarnacion. Um, there was a couple other Cleveland guys I said that probably aren't Hall of Famers, but you know, like well, and even like I don't I don't know with all the stuff that happened a few years ago with Omar Vizquel that he'll ever get into the Hall of Fame. But if he doesn't, then he would be obviously one of the he'd be a first ballot Hall of pretty good player. But yeah, a lot of those guys, like Grady Sizemore put it together for a handful of seasons and then fell
yeah,
off. I don't know if Travis Hafner was using steroids, but he was good for a while, fell off.
yeah. My first person I thought of was Richie Sexton. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
Like him and who is the third baseman? If you're talking the Hall of Mediocre, I mean Alvaro Espinoza has to be on there, right?
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Like he never was flashy, but he like just seemed to always just get the job done.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that for sure.
All right. Well, you want to shout out anybody else before we head on out?
Um, no, I'll just shout out. I mean, if you were at the state games, there was a lot of Apple Creek, Waynedale community, Holmesville, Fredericksburg, Mount Eaton people there. We appreciate that. It was loud. We probably had the best crowd of anybody there either day. So that was cool. And then I'll shout out my wife Nicole for allowing me to do all the baseball coaching that I get to do in the year. So I'll shout those two people out.
All right. Just so you know, I did do my part. I let some signs in my yard since I live in Apple
Oh,
Creek.
good, good. Some of those signs I wish weren't written. There were some acronyms that don't mean things that should be on the side of 250, but people don't know what those acronyms stand for, so we'll just leave it at
All right.
that.
Well, thanks for coming on and
Yeah, thanks for having me.
see you later.
So yeah.
Bye.